What's good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. What's up? What's up? I know y'all see the title, right? Um, Uncle Sam versus the Iron Sheik, right? Battle of World War III, right? You know, we got Russia, Iran going at it. Uh, bombing and stuff. They, you know, throwing little jabs at each other. It's not, a full-fledged war, because I don't think America declared war on them yet. And I'm not sure if I don't think Iran declared war on them yet neither, but they bombing each other, you know. Hold on one second, Selah. Yeah. So yeah, it's almost like, like with war and all that stuff, war is like a slow build up, but to make it, to make it, simplify it, like it's almost like a fight, right? When two people are, fight starts off with two people arguing, right? And that's similar to like, them putting sanctions on each other, or, doing all the stuff that they, may, do to undermine each other. Then, you go from the arguing, now you might start pushing each other, right? So that goes to like what we see now, where they might, bomb certain significant areas of, of each other, right? And then you have the full out fight when they're just boots on the ground, bombing everything, and they declare war, right? Um, so yeah, we in exciting times, interesting times, right? Of course, all praises to the Most High. We do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? We got a few little articles here, right? So yeah, we got a few articles here. Just gonna you know read some highlights from a couple articles, right? Um, and like a few of these, is from, it's from before the attack, right? What Trump did, I think was it Friday or Saturday or something, right? So yeah, let's get into it though. This says Iran and Israel war escalate with strikes on Iran nuclear facilities. Iran retaliate with missiles and drones. U.S. consider military intervention. Iran warns against it, calling it very dangerous for everyone. So this is of course before Trump did what he jumped out of the window and did what he did, right? So Iran was telling them, don't get involved, right? And Trump, and this is how the white man is the devil, for the simple fact that he said, all right, we're going to decide in 2 weeks. The man didn't even give him a good full 2 weeks before, they went and bombed everything, right? So, then it says, Israel target Iranian nuclear programs and commanders claim to have destroyed 50% of Iran's missile launchers. Casualties report 657 in Iran, 24 in Israel. Netanyahu vows to continue until the threat is eliminated, right? So these people want war, and because it's all about dominance, and they want to be dominant in these different areas, right? But that's how you keep white supremacy alive, right? And it says Gaza conflict intensify along with Iran-Israel war with over 200 Palestinian deaths reported in 48 hours. Iran warns U.S. It says Iran warns U.S. involvement in Israel conflict would be very dangerous. Claim U.S. already supporting Israel strikes. So he's like, look, you're already giving them weapons to hit us. Now, if you come directly, then it's gonna be problems. Trump decided on U.S. involvement. Trump to decide on U.S. involvement within 2 weeks seeks unconditional surrender from Iran, not just ceasefire. And of course, he bombed them anyway before those 2 weeks. Nuclear talks between U.S. and Iran canceled. Iran caused negotiation meaningless and aimed ongoing conflict. Iran supreme leader threatens irreparable damage if U.S. join conflict. Demands aggression stop before diplomatic talks. So Iran's like, look, I'm not going to talk to you people. You keep blowing up everything, right? Then if you keep blowing up everything, we're going to have to do that to you. Because Iran not scared of America. If y'all been paying attention, been watching the news, watching videos, they've been chanting death to America for years, ever since I was a kid, right? So they like Bernie Mac. We ain't scared of you. You know what I'm saying? So Israel-Iran conflict enters ninth day with rising death tolls. Begin with Israel strike on Israel nuclear sites. Putin warns of renewal of conflict if Ukraine doesn't recognize referenda in index regions, escalating tensions. So Putin done took over parts of Ukraine, and he want Zelensky to honor those parts that he took as that being part of Russia again, right? So then it says Russia claimed 4 Ukraine regions as annexed despite international condemnation and incomplete occupation. Putin's stance on annexed territories make diplomatic solutions unlikely, pushing peace negotiations further away. Because there's no peace. There's no peace. Like the Bible said, Jeremiah 50:21, the sound of battle is in the land, right? And it says, ongoing war continued with recent deadly assaults as global attention shifts to Iran and Israel, right? So it's global conflict all over the place, right? And it says cyber attacks on U.S. infrastructure by Iranian actors are a primary concern, targeting bank systems and energy grids, right? So now they done blew up everything. Now they worry about these Iranian hackers, getting into their systems. It says Iranian proxy groups may strike U.S. interests in Middle East with limited capacity to attack homeland. So they think they don't have a capacity to attack homeland. And it says potential for attacks by foreign nationals or inspire U.S. citizens, especially if U.S.-Iran tensions escalate. So now they worry about the Iranians they got living here in America might sympathize with their country and might want to, do something, right? Then it says previous Iranian-linked cyber attacks and assassination attempts highlighted ongoing threats to the U.S. interests. All right. So yeah, they done bombed everybody, and now they got them smart people over there with the hackers, and they worried. It says U.S. launched strikes in 3 Iranian nuclear sites, with Trump declaring it a spectacular military success. Iran threatens everlasting dangerous consequences, calling U.S. actions a egregious act of aggression. So he didn't say, we're going to get you back. He said says Iran threatens a everlasting and dangerous consequences. What could be more everlasting than nuclear war, right? That is everlasting. Look at Japan, right? The bomb that they dropped on Japan is not as strong as the bombs they got now. And after they did that, they was feeling the effects of that radiation for generations and generations, kids were being born deformed and all that, right? So that's it says Iran threatens everlasting and dangerous consequences, calling the U.S. actions a egregious act of aggression. Trump warns Iran against retaliation, promising force far greater if provoked. So Trump talking big junk, right? You know, he talking big cash, right? You know, like the Bible says, the beast had they had a mouth that spoke like a dragon and spoke bold things, and that's what Trump is doing. He's speaking bold things. Like, all right, you can read. I know we just blew up your whole nuclear stuff, and you can try to retaliate. Go ahead and hit me back. I just hit you, and you better not hit me back. And if you hit me back, it's on, right? So just talking big stuff, like speaking bold like a dragon, just like it says, right? Then it says, our U.S. become active participant in Israel-Iran conflict, marking significant escalation. So they got involved, and it's escalating. Iran requests emergency UN Security Council meeting, citing violation of Resolution 2231. They don't care about that. These people break their treaties. They break their own laws that they create. They ain't trying to hear all that. That's what they do. They break laws. They're lawbreakers, right? And it says Secretary of State Marco Rubio refused to say on Sunday whether the United States actually had intelligence that Iran was building a weapon of mass destruction. So they was pressing our boy Rubio about the Iran weapon making capability. That he didn't give them an answer, but they went over there and they did what they did. So basically, they did a George Bush, part two, right? They said they had weapons over there, and they went over there and bombed them, just like how they did to Saddam Hussein. Then told everybody that Saddam had bombs over there, weapons of mass destruction. Went over there and bombed everything they can bomb, stole the oil and all that stuff, the poppy seeds, so they can make their synthetic heroin that they call fentanyl. So yeah, they did all that. So it says Secretary of State of Marco Rubio refused to say on Sunday whether the United States actually had intelligence that Iran was building a weapon of mass destruction. Before bombing the Gulf countries' nuclear sites, dismissing any such assessment as irrelevant. So what type of, they was like, we don't need to see what's going on over there. We're just going to bomb it. We know they got it. We don't need no evidence. They got it because we said we got it. Because he said, had intelligence. Hold on. It says, dismissing any such assessments as irrelevant, meaning like, why would we go and check it out to see if they really is doing something like that? I mean, come on now. I mean, of course they are. They're Iranians, Of course they're doing it. So it says, dismantling. It says Rubio was one of the several Trump administration officials to oversee the attack titled Operation Midnight Hammer, in which the U.S. bombed 3 key nuclear sites in Iran as a part of Israel's war on the long-time foe. The Joint Chief of Staff Chairman said that the attack caused extremely severe damage and destruction to the sites before acknowledging that the complete assessment determining the extent of damage will take more time, right? So they over there just bombing stuff. Don't even know what they bombing. Don't even know if they got any weapons, but they want to fight. And they don't care how they get to fight. Then it says Israel close to meeting goals in Iran, removing ballistic missiles and nuclear threat, says Netanyahu. Netanyahu operation will stop when objectives achieved won't pursue actions beyond what's needed. They want to try to clear them out. Says Prime Minister believes Iran wants to wipe out Israel. Wants to wipe out Israel, justifying the operations against concentrated existential threats. So you're creating a threat. They're creating a threat, and then they're complaining to the world about the threat. It says Israel moves step by step towards the goal, every close to completing them, according to Netanyahu. And it says U.S. B-2 bombers struck Iranian nuclear complexes, drawing America into Israel windowing conflict with Tehran. And just like we was reading the other day when we was doing our watch on World War III, on the road to Armageddon, right? We said that the Lord is going to bring them out. We read that in Ezekiel, that He's going to bring them out and bring them to the east, bring them to the valley of Jehoshaphat so He can judge them there, right? We read that, right, the other day. And we see right here it says, B-2 bombers struck Iranian nuclear complexes, drawing America into Israel windowing conflict with Tehran. Right there, they're there, just like the Most High said He's going to put them there, right? And it says Trump confirmed the attacks, calling them essential to halt Iranian nuclear ambitions and warning against retaliation. Iranian condemned the criminal act. Reserving all options. Okay. Iran condemned the criminal act, reserving all options to defend itself, raising fears of regional escalation. I mean, you think they're not going to do anything? That says U.S. politicians split on the strikes. Some called it the right call. Others deem it unconstitutional. Right. So, and that's crazy, right? Because again, like how we can read here in Daniel 2, and start at 41. It says, and let me start at 40. Well, yeah. And it says, and whereas thou saw the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. So they are divided. They're split. Some of them didn't want to go to war, right? But they ended up going to war because Trump done jumped the gun and did what he did. So it says, whereas thou saw it as the feet, and the toes, as potter's clay and part iron and potter's clay and part iron, and the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of iron, where much as thou sawest the iron mixed with myrrh and clay. So the kingdom is going to be they're going to be divided politically, but militarily they're going to be strong because they still have a powerful military, right? But as we can see, politically they're not on the same accord because you have a few of them, Trump supporters that's not okay with all of that, right? So back to the article, right? Back to the thing. It says U.S. politicians split on the strike. Some call it the right call, others deem it unconstitutional, right? It says U.S. launches direct military strikes on three major Iranian nuclear facilities, dramatically escalating regional tension, which they did. Iran, okay, then it says Trump says Israel welcomes U.S. Intervention. Netanyahu calls it a bold decision that will change history. Of course, it's a bold decision that will change history because it's about to start World War III, and the things is never ever gonna be the same, right? World War III. On U.S. strikes on Iran rise fear and wider region conflict, prompting international reaction. UN Secretary General warns of potential catastrophic consequences, urging de-escalation. So you got your little UN buddies that's not cool with it, because again, like we just read in Daniel, they will be partly strong and partly divided. They would not be together, you know. Then it says countries including New Zealand, China, Australia call for a diplomatic solution over military action. Japan and South Korea prepare to discuss security and economic implications for U.S. strikes. So now they trying to, you know, prepare themselves like, oh, dang, you know, because, you know, their America allies are like, shoot, we got to see how we're going to protect ourselves since they want to, you know, jump out of, jump out the window, you know, so we a potential target, you know, so we got to, get our stuff together, right? And it says, concerns grow about the regional stability and potential unintended consequences of military intervention, right? So, so the people is worried. You know, even their allies is worried. So like Daniel said, get it one more time. Like I said, it says, whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, potter's clay, and part iron, because, in case y'all don't know, in case y'all not understanding, this is a vision of a statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream. And so every body part represent a different empire or kingdom that was going to come into rule and, and have an empire before Christ come back and set up his kingdom, with the Israelites. So the last kingdom is the toes, the feet and the toes, because, going from the head all the way down to the body, your feet will be the last, body part, right? So that is symbolic for that being the last kingdom to rule before Christ come back, right? We're gonna get all that. So so that's why, if it ain't making sense to some, that's where it's coming in at. We just picking it up at the toes. So it says, whereas, because that's the part that's talking about America, that part of the statue. It says, whereas thou sawest the feet and the iron, the feet and the toes, part potter's clay and part iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in the strength of iron, much as thou saw the iron mixed with clay. Because it's going to be strength in iron because the military is strong, but politically they're going to be weak because they don't agree on nothing. Then it says, and as the toes and the feet were part iron and part clay, so is the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So they're not going to be together. That's why their allies that's in their, system, they're, some of them not with it. You got Trump beefing with their allies, right? Then you got even people within his own party that's not cool with it. Then, of course, the people on the left is probably, not cool with it. And it says, whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with myrrh and clay shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. So, like I said, so you got all this, mixture of people, right? And they, such hypocrites, because America act like they're the place for everybody to come to, but this place is built off of racism. And it's a lot of dissension and a lot of separation here, right? Although they give you the smoke and mirrors of this being a utopia for everybody of equality, right? But it says they should mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they should not cleave to one another. So that's why this American dream is not working. This American concept, this land of the free that they say is not working because they should mingle themselves together with the seed of men, but they should not cleave one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay, right? So that's why this doesn't work, because this whole place is built off of dissension and hypocrisy, right? Let's see what else we got. It says China criticized U.S. actions, stating they damaged U.S. credibility and could lead to uncontrollable escalation. So again, like I said, the other countries is looking at it, like looking at America like, wow, y'all bogus, right? UN Security Council met to discuss strikes. Russia, China, and Pakistan proposed resolution to mediate ceasefire. China UN ambassador urged restraint and call on parties, especially Israel, to ceasefire immediately, right? Because they know what this can lead to. Because these people, they act like they don't care, but they know that if this keep going, the weapons that they got, somebody gonna end up pushing a button, right? And it says, the president increasingly ordered military action without Congress approval, stretching executive authority over the past 25 years. Legal framework includes a constitution includes war power resolution and UN charter, but the president often cites Article 2 authority. Recent examples include Trump's Iran strike, Obama Libya intervention, and Biden's Iraq and Syria strikes. Congress and courts had limited ability to challenge presidential military action, reducing checks on executive power. International law violations carry minimum consequences, mainly affecting U.S. Diplomacy and global reputation. So basically, saying that ain't gonna really, America's too powerful in a global scale for any other, one nation to really do something about it. I mean, so yeah, it might affect their reputation, but I mean, nobody's, or their ability to negotiate with other nations, but it's not gonna really affect them like that because they up there, right? That's what I took from it. And it says, JD Vance defends the action, claiming Trump's smart approach differs from past dumb presidents. Vance argued the strikes was precise, surgical, and with presidential authority to prevent nuclear proliferation. The bombing sparked concerns about potential Iranian retaliation and everlasting consequences. Right? So now they're worried about, okay, what's going to happen now? Right? They done bombed everybody, so now they complaining, right? So let's get into this whole thinky thing, right? We're not gonna read all of them, but let's see what the Most High had to say about this, right? Let's look at the prophecies and see what's is going to be going on, because a lot of people don't understand. Like, the Most High is getting ready to visit this place and bring His Son to judge this place. And a lot of people, think Jesus coming back to hand out hugs and and to embrace everybody, because the image that we get, is like Jesus, like it's like a white light, and he's coming back, and everybody just so happy, and they're just waiting to be embraced. No, that's not the case here. Jesus coming back to kill many men, many men, right? Billions to be precise, right? So, and you better hope that you're not part of that number, right? So let's start with uh, Ezra 6. Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6, right? In the Apocrypha, right? 2nd Ezra and 6. Let's start at 2nd Ezra and 6. Let's start at 7. So 2nd Ezra 6 and 7 says, then he answered. So this is our dear brother Ezra. He talking to an angel, trying to figure out what's going on in this world. And I like Ezra. Ezra probably one of my favorite prophets, because Ezra, he asks questions that most of us will ask. Especially getting the understanding that we get, and so then we might have certain concerns. And I like Ezra because he asks certain questions, right? So yeah, it says, so he's talking to the angel, trying to figure out what's going on in the end of the world, right? And all that. So it says, then answered I and said, what shall be the pardon of sunder of times, or when shall the end of the first and the beginning of it that follow? So, because the beginning of that follow is when Christ come back, right? And set up that new kingdom, right? So it says, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, right? So the angel, because everybody makes us, say, well, why everything so black and white? Why everything so racial, right? Because the angel right here is telling us that it's all comes down to Jacob and Esau, the Israelites and the Edomites, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American people, and the so-called Caucasian people, right? Then it says, and he said unto me, Abraham and Isaac, when from Abraham unto Isaac, and when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob hand held the heel of Esau. Because the story. There was wrestling in her womb. Rebecca had like a very painful pregnancy. So as the twins were being born, Jacob was grabbing his heel because he was trying to pull them down, because he wanted to come out first, right? And it says, took his heel. Then it says, hold on. Let's get Joel 2 and 2. It says, for Esau is the end of the world, right? So Esau is the end of the world, meaning the Edomites will be the last kingdom to rule, like we read in Daniel, because how we, with how the statue is broken down, the toes is represent the last and final kingdom before Christ come back. So right here is telling us that it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and the world meaning this society, not this planet, this earth, because the Bible, when the Bible talks about earth, it will say earth, typically, right? So when it says world, again, I think we went over this yesterday. The word world means cosmos, right? Because remember, it's written in a different language. So it means cosmos or age or society, right? Or government, right? Then it says, for Esau is the end of the world. So Esau is the end of this society. This society that we see currently, he's going to be the one that's going to usher in the end. And we see that because he's the one that created these nuclear bombs that can destroy the whole everything, right? So it says, for Esau is the end of the world, right? And let's get Joel real quick. And it says, Joel 2:2. It says, the day of darkness and of gloominess, the day of the clouds of thickness, of thick darkness, and the morning spread upon the mountains, and a great people and a strong, and there have not been ever like, neither shall any more after, even the years, many generations, right? So when the end comes, when Yahweh Shah comes back with the millions and millions, yeah, I like saying it. When he's come back, it's not going to be a glorious occasion. It's not going to be great, right? Because even the elect, the ones that's chosen, they're going to be scared to death. Because the Bible says that even the elect is going to be saved by the skin of their teeth, right? So when it says, for Esau is the end of the world, because he's coming with all types of fire, with these nuclear bombs they got, right? And it says, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. So we are, once their kingdom falls, then the Israelite kingdom begins, because Christ is going to come and set it up. And it says, and the hand of man is betwixt of the hill and the hand. So what that means is, so you know how it talks about Jacob hand grabs Esau hill. So now just to say like they were, you can look at it, visually. So you can see somebody here and they're wrestling and the person is grabbing a hill, right? So now the hand and the hill symbolize the rest of the people of the world in their time to rule and be great nations and have dominion. And then then Esau time to rule and have dominion, but his dominion is going to bring in the end. So then Jacob's coming right in on the backside. That's going to be the beginning of the new world, right? And it says, so that's what it means by it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. The hand of man is betwixt of the hill, and the hand of other questions Ezra asked not, right? So that's basically what it's saying, that it's all it's about the Israelites and the Edomites. Then all those nations in between, they're just here to play their do their little part. They're gonna have their time to rule and all that. Then Esau, he's gonna have his time to rule, and they're ruling right now. But then after their time to rule, it's gonna be over with, curtains, because Israelites is gonna rule forever, ever, right? That's how it's gonna go. Then that's good. Let's get Genesis real quick. Let's get Genesis. Let's get Genesis 9 and 11. Go to Genesis 9 and 11. And it says, I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the water of the flood, neither shall any more be a flood to destroy the earth, right? So why do I read this? Because God promised that he's not going to destroy the earth with water, anymore, right? Because it tells you that the Most High comes with fire, right? It tells you it comes with fire. And hold on, let me get that. 1 second. So Isaiah 66 and 15 says, it says, For behold, the Lord cometh with fire, and his chariots of a whirlwind, and rendering his anger and fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. And what is those flames of fire? Those nuclear bombs that's coming, that's going to come and disintegrate everything that it hits, right? So, like we just read in Genesis 9 and 11, he said, I'm not going to destroy, I promise, I'm not going to destroy the world with fire, with water no more, right? That's why we got the rainbow up there. The rainbow is a promise, a covenant, that he's not going to destroy the world with water anymore. And how unique the rainbow is, and scientists will tell you this if you don't believe me. Me and you can be standing right next to each other, looking at the rainbow, but we're going to see different colors of the rainbow. Why? Because God uniquely made a covenant with every last one of us that he's not going to destroy this earth with water anymore. So that's why even if we're standing right next to each other, looking at the same rainbow, we're not going to see the same exact colors. And that's provable, right? And proven that God made a covenant with each and last and one of us that he's not going to do that. That's why we can see the rainbow and we all see different colors of it. But that rainbow still represent that contract that he made with us, right? So it says, where are we at? Boom, boom, boom. So, Isaiah 66 and 15 again. It says, For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger and fury. So he's not coming back giving out hugs and kisses and patting people on the head and stuff, right? He's coming back with his anger and fury and rebuke of fire, of flames of fire. That's what he's coming back with, right? So we got to understand that. And then it says, what else we got? Let's go back to Ezra. Let's go back to 2nd Ezra's real quick. 2nd Ezra's. And I think. So yeah, 2nd Ezra's. So 2nd Ezra's 9. And 1, right? So we got to pay attention to what's going on. We got to watch the news. That's why, we read these articles. We look, we pay attention, and we watch. Because it says right here in 2nd Ezra, it says, He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest the part of the sign pass, which I have told thee. So we're seeing these signs pass. We're seeing World War III happen. We're seeing Russia, Iran, Pakistan, India, China. We're seeing them linking up just like the Bible says they will link up together, right? We're seeing these prophecies happen, right? We're seeing the Euphrates dry up like John the Baptist told us 2,000 years ago it was going to dry up, for the king of the east and them to come and make their way over there. The king of the east being Iran, Korea, China, and so forth, and India, being the kings of the east. Come on and march on in there to the middle. Y'all bring your butt down there too, because God got a plan for y'all too, right? So it says, then shall thou understand that it is the very same time when the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. So when we start seeing these happen and come to pass, we know that the Most High is coming back, right? And it says, therefore when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and we're seeing these things. We're seeing civil unrest. We're seeing protests. We got over there in over there in Africa, them the people are taking their leaders out of government, right? Over there in the Middle East, the people taking their leaders out of government. South America, people taking their leaders out of government, and pretty soon America is gonna do the same, have a revolt and take their leaders out of government, right? So therefore there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. Then shall thou well understand that the Most High spake those things from the days that were before, even from the beginning. Right? So God told us what was going on, just that we never read this book, and but as we reading this book and figuring out and seeing the things that He said was going to happen, these things taking place, we get the understanding now, right? It says, for like as all that is made in the world that have a beginning and an end, and the end is manifested, right? And that's what's happening. The end is being manifested, right? So let's get Revelation, because we see it, because like I said, we see how it's going to happen. We see war is World War III is the destination. That's why we do that series called Countdown to World War III, or On the Road to Armageddon, right? Because we know where this is heading, right? We're just sitting back watching, right? With a big old bag of popcorn, just watching. So this is Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe come quickly. And that's what's happening now. The third woe is coming quickly, and that is talking about World War III. So the second woe is past. World War II happened already. Now the third woe comes quickly, right? Then this one, it says, close it. Thank you. And it says, Matthew 24 and 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but it is not yet, right? So we're seeing all of this. So, and we got to know that the end is not yet, because the end is not going to be here to a black man by the name of Jesus Christ, who the world called Jesus Christ, real name in the Hebrew, Yahweh Shah, comes back and put his feet on the ground and set everything straight, right? So we gotta, keep hold on, right? Let's see. Let's get do I want this one? I guess we can read it. So let's read this one. It says, I'm going to start at the top. So 2nd Ezra 7 and 1. And when I had made an end of speaking these words, there was sent unto me an angel which had been sent unto me the night before. And he said unto me, Up, Ezra, and hear the words that I am come to tell you. And I said, Speak, O my God. Then said he unto me, The sea is set is in a wide place. Hold on one second, Salakia, real quick. Salakia.
Shalak.
So, so it says, let me read it again, start at the top. It says, and when I had made an end of speaking these words, there was sent unto me an angel which had been sent unto me nights before. And he said unto me, up Esdras, and hear the words I am come to tell you. And I said, speak, oh my God. Then he said unto me, the sea is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great, right? You know, so it's talking about this world here, right? Metaphorically speaking. And it says, that it might be deep and great, but the case of the entrance were narrow and like a river. Who then could go into the sea to look upon it and to rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? Right? So we have to walk the narrow path. Although we're going to see a whole bunch of crazy stuff in this world, you know, coming up. Because all hell is about to break loose, and it is breaking loose. But we got to stay on the straight and narrow, right? And it says, there is also another thing. A city is built and set upon a broad field, and is full of all good things. The entrance thereof is narrow and set in dangerous place to fall, like as if there's were a fire in the right hand, and on the left is deep water. So it's like talking about a house that's sitting between a place that is burning. Fire is on a narrow, basically like a little narrow, thing and foundation, and it's got fire on one side and deep water on the other, right? Then it says, and one only path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once, right? So again, we have to ask ourselves a question. So what not Christ, but what Ezra is saying through the angel, speaking, what the Most High is telling them, that this truth, is so narrow to find. This understanding of this Bible is so narrow, few will find it. It's so narrow. It's like how are you explaining it first? It's like he's saying at first he was talking about how it's like a entrance. It says, let me just read it over. It said, and then who then could go into the sea to look upon it and rule it? So it's like, and he said, I'm going to start at 3. He says, and I said, speak on, my God. Then he said unto me, the sea is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great. But the case of entrance wherein is narrow, like a river. Then who could go in the sea and look upon it and rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? So it's saying you have to go through the narrow. You have to go through some things, right? You have to, go through some heartaches, right? But you have to stay on that narrow path so you can get that crown of glory and rule at the end, right? And it says, there is also another thing. The city is built and set upon a broad field and full with all good things. The entrance thereof is narrow and set in dangerous place to fall, like as if there's were a fire on the right hand and on the left deep water. So it's saying like this kingdom thing is that, it's not like something that God is just passing out to everybody, right? And then it says, and and only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once, right? And that's how it is, right? So that's why I say you have to ask yourself a question when we, call ourselves following these religions, going to these churches and stuff. It's like, are we really following the right thing? Are we learning what we supposed to be learning? Like, is pastor teaching us the truth, right? Because Matthew 7:13 says, Enter ye at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth into destruction. So we have to understand that, because again, if Christianity was the way, or all these other little false religions, Christianity I'm picking on because they have like about 3 billion, 4 billion people professing to be Christians. That's not the narrow path. That can't be the narrow path if damn near the whole dangle world called himself a Christian in some type of form, right? So, because it says right here, enter ye into the narrow straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth destruction, and many there which go in thereat, right? Because straight is the gate and the narrow is the way which lead unto life, but few there be that find it. So the Bible saying few is going to find this, what we call eternal life, right? This glory. But you have everybody going to church Sunday talking about that they're saved and they're a Christian and they going to heaven and all that stuff, right? But we're reading here that few find it, right? And it's a narrow path to the truth. It's not something that everybody is just going to be comfortable with, and everybody, it's just going to be a mainstream thing and everybody's going to be a part of, right? Few find it, right? And we got to hope that we are that few that find it. That's why we have to ask ourselves these questions. Are we following the right doctrine, right? And which is, for us, the right doctrine is keeping the faith of Christ and keeping the commandments, right? That's what we do. Where we at? Let's go back to Ezra's real quick. So let's get Ezra 11, right? Wait, do I want? Yeah, you get Ezra 11. Well, hold on. Before we get to Ezra 11, just go back to Ezra 7:28. And it says, For my son Jesus shall be revealed with those that be with him, and that remain shall rejoice with them for 400 years. After these years shall my son Christ die, and all men that have life, all men that have life, and the world shall be turned into a old silence 7 days, like as the former judgment, so that no man shall remain. So oh yeah, I don't know why I read this, but no, so no, this is talking about as far as the 70 AD or whatever, right? After the death of Christ, but just get 11 though. I thought that was going to say something else, but that's what we can get. Ezra 11. Let's get Ezra 11 and just start at 39. Ezra 11 and 39, right? Second Ezra's 11 and 39. This one, and over here I'm gonna get Revelation 18 and 1 over here real quick. So yeah, second Ezra's 11:39, right? We're gonna read down. We're gonna read all the way down. So it says, "Art thou it that remainest of the four beasts whom I made to reign in my world at the end of their time might come through them," right? So America is that fourth beast, right? That we read about in Daniel, because it is the revised Roman Empire, because they are the Romans, right? Although they call themselves the Americans, but they are the Romans, right? Let's get Revelation 18 and 1. It says, "After these I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and became the habitation of devils, and behold, of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean, hateful bird," right? Okay, that's what this place is gonna be. This place is gonna be destroyed, desolate, when those bombs go off, right? So it says back up here, "Art thou it that remainest of the four beasts whom I made reign in my world, that the end of their time might come through them? And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past," because America rose up. They became the powerful empire, right? Dating back to the Romans. The Romans rose into power. They took out the Greeks and the Persians, and the Medes, right? So there was a powerful nation. Then it says, "And the fourth came and overcome all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world, with great fairness over the whole compass of the earth, and with much wicked with much wicked oppression, and all in long time dwelt." Wait, hold on, let me read it right. It says, "With great fearfulness, and over the world compassed of the earth, with much wicked oppression, and long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit." That's what America has. The Western world has dwelt in power with deceit, right? Ever since they came into power, that's how they've been ruling, right? Let's get this really. Let's go to Job really quick. Let's go to Job 9, right? And we're going to break it all the way down, right? Job 9 and 24, right? Hold on. Job 9 and 24. But let's read this one more time though, before it says, "And the fourth came, right? Because the fourth beast came. That's the Roman Empire, and overcame all the beasts that were past, because they rose into power, and had power over the world, even with great fairness, and over the whole compass of the earth, with much wicked oppression." So these bastards rule with oppression, and we know this to be true because we know history, right? And our brother Ezra is telling us the same thing, right? And we know who the Romans were and who they are. They're Caucasians, right? So we know who we're talking about when we say that these people are the wicked. And it's not because of how they look, because some people will say, well, no, it's not because of what they look. It's because their crimes on the earth, right, that they have done. Just so it happened, they look like the way that they look, right? But Job 9 and 24 says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked," right? And we just read over here that the that with great fearfulness, because they was ruthless. These are ruthless, vicious people, right? How they operate, and uh, so with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth, because they rule with an iron fist over the whole earth. That's why they in every nation trying to tell them what to do. That's why they over there with the Iran and Israel conflict, right? Because it says, um, with over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. They oppress all nations, not just us, all nations, and so long in so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. These people rule with deceit and lies and stuff. That's how they trick Africa out of all their diamonds and gold and minerals and all that stuff, right? Africa has the most, natural resources on the planet, but also a lot of their nations are poor, right? Why is that? Because they're stealing everything from them. Because it says, Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges, meaning he changes, the laws of God. He changes the prophets of God, right? He got you thinking that everything in this book is white, 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 that he was actually smart enough to sit down and write the stuff that's in this book, right? He got people thinking that. Because it says, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, he covered the faces of the judges thereof. So that's why he give us a white Jesus, right? A white Moses, and all this stuff, right? And propagate lies and other foolishness that they push in their society, right? Because it says the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, he covered the faces of the judges. If not, meaning if these people are not wicked, if these people are not the most evil people on the planet, if we cannot look at their track record and know that these people are the most devilish, wicked, it says, if not, where and who is he? That's what it says, right? Then it says, back over here. It says, the fourth beast, we read that, and it says, for the earth has thou not judged with truth. Because they don't run this earth with truth. They run this earth, like we just said, read with deceit. It says, with much wicked oppression, and so long time dwelt he on earth with deceit, meaning they operate in deceit and trickery, right? And then it says, for the earth has thou not judged with truth. Because they don't operate in truth, right? They only operate for their own gain and how they can rob, steal, and kill, right? Then if you're going to be an accomplice to that, okay, cool. If you're not going to be an accomplice to that, then you're going to get robbed, murdered, stabbed, or killed. That's what they're going to do to you. Either get down or lay down, right? And it says, for thou hast afflicted the meek. What do they do to the meek? They afflicted the meek. When they came over here to the shores of these North Americas, they came over here like, oh, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm at. I think I'm in India. Oh my God, can you please help me? Right? And our Native American brothers took care of them. That's what they did. They taught them how to fish. They showed them how to use the corn as fertilizer. They showed them how to survive over here, right? And guess what? They killed them the first chance they got. Soon they thought they learned everything they needed to learn over here. They killed 80 million of them, right? That's what they did. Name a place, I challenge anybody, name a place where they set up at, where they have a booming civilization at, where they have not killed the native people there to get that booming civilization. Name a place on this planet where they are, like by the drones, by more than a substantial amount, where they at, where they have not killed the native people to get there. Name me a place. I don't think it's no place on. It doesn't exist because that's not their mo. They don't go up to a place and make friends. That's not what they do. Right? You either get down with the get down or you're gonna be down. Right? So it says, "For thou hast afflicted the meek." That's what they did. They afflicted the meek, our meek little brothers and sisters, these Native Americans that only wanted to help them survive the cold winters when they got off the little nasty, dirty, filthy, disease-infested rat boats that they rode over here with, right? But for thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceful. They hurt the peaceful. They go around breaking peace with everybody. Ask our Native Americans how many peace treaties they broke. Should ask America's recent enemy, Iran. They broke the peace treaty 2016 when Trump got in office the first time. Right? Everything was cool. But Trump was like, nah, forget all that. And now, ever since that, Iran, it been up, right? Not to mention what, all the other stuff that's going along with that, right? So it says, "For thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceful, thou hast loved liars." America loved the liars. That's why they go and they fund these dictator countries, right? These countries that they claim is so bad for human rights, but they will go and sit with the Saudi prince over there, right? They'll go sit with that man, but then they'll act like that country's the most horrible place to be, right? But they'll go take their money, they'll go take their oil, right? They'll go give them money, right? Because it says, "Thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwelling of them that brought forth fruit." They destroyed the dwelling of them that brought forth fruit. Look at our people. Look at those people in Africa, right? All they did was give them all their natural resources and say, "Here, Mr. White Man." And all the white man did was rape, stole, took, robbed, murdered, and killed, and took everything, right? To the point now Africa looking like, dang, this wasn't profitable for us at all, right? So it says, "They love liars and destroy the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit." So all these little countries they got working for them that they robbing, like France. France got a lot of African nations down there that they're robbing and stealing and getting wealthy off of, like our brothers and sisters down in Haiti that France been robbing from, since the 1800s, right? You got Germany, all in the Philippines and in the South Asia, in North Africa, and all that stuff, robbing and stealing. They plunder the world together, right? With America being the spirit, that their leader, right? So it says, "They love liars and destroy the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and has cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm." So they go attack people that did them no harm. Remember, Saddam Hussein and them was just chilling, like 1998. They was just chilling. 1999, everybody was chilling in the Saudis, right? It was, over there in Iraq, right? Then all of a sudden, America said, "Hey, let's go mess with the people over there," right? Because it says that and has cast down walls of such as did thee no harm, meaning they invade countries, invade nations that didn't do them no harm. These people didn't cause nobody no harm, but they would go to their country and invade them and occupy it and be there for a while. That's why I said, name a place, a nation on this planet where they reside at, where if you close your eyes and you think about where do white people live, and whatever nation pop in your head, okay, whatever that nation is, ask yourself a question: why are they there? How did they get there? because they killed every native person that was there to get there. No matter what country you can probably think of, the most quote unquote whitest European country you can think of, they was not there first. They killed the natives, right? And it says, where are we at? It says, therefore it is thy wrongful dealing. Therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up up. Hold on. Therefore it says, therefore it's this. Says, therefore thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. The highest also have looked upon the proud times, and behold they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. Meaning God is getting tired of these people. He done seen enough. Now it's time to bring their punishment to play. Because everybody, think that these people can get away with what they have gotten away with, and nothing is going to happen. And they even tricked us to think that nothing is going to happen. Because if we talk about what they have done to our people for the last 500 years, it's going to be a somebody that's probably as dark as me going to tell me, oh, man, what you talking about? That was a long time ago, dude. What's wrong with you, man? That was a long time ago, right? They have tricked our own people that look just like us to think that the harm that they have done to us, who cares about it? It was a long time ago. But next month, and probably a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, those same people was going to celebrate the 4th of July and light fireworks over something that happened about damn near 300 years ago, right? But they tell your simple behind not to care about your own history or the harm that your people go through, right? Israel, let me take that back. Those Israeli people over there right now that stole the country and the nation because of what happened to their people in Germany, right? So, and they're still fighting and trying to hold to their so-called fake history and fake suffering stories that they concocted together, to keep that land over there, right? So it's just that we have been told that our stuff don't matter. Our history, we don't care about that. We shouldn't care about it. And it's amazing that people that look just like me and you, will say that, right? At the same time, celebrating the 4th of July and Thanksgiving, right? Crazy. And brainwash. So it says, where we at? And it says, therefore it is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, meaning God is, he's seeing everything that they have done. Although you have a few Uncle Toms, a few of our people that think it's okay, we need to just give them a pass. It was a long time ago. Like, why are you tripping, right? But God is not God. Thank God that God don't think like y'all, because we would be in this place forever, right? Serving them forever, right? And to the point that we all just eventually wipe out, because the Bible says, unless the days be shortened, it'll be no flesh left. And y'all be okay with that, right? So it says, I'm not talking about y'all, I'm talking about those that want this, that so got their head so far up, master behind, that they willing to say, oh, wait, now, that was a long time ago, right? But it says, therefore, thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. Because they're very prideful people. The highest also have looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended. Meaning, he's done with you people. All that stuff, all that little stuff you've been getting away with for the last 500 or so years, God is coming to judge you now, right? Then it says, and his abominations are fulfilled. Therefore appear no more thou eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious head, nor thy hurtful claws, nor thy vain body, right? And coincidentally, America's symbol is the eagle, right? Like what a coincidence, right? The Roman symbol was the eagle. The Spanish symbol was the Spaniard symbol was the eagle, right? England had the symbol of the eagle. These people always use the animal symbol of the eagle to represent their people. Just like us being the Israelites, our animal symbol will, typically will be the lion, right? So nations does these things, right? So they always been represented by the eagle. And we see right here, God is calling them, like their, little nickname, right? Letting them know, we know who you are, right? So it says, therefore appear no more thou eagle, because that's what America thinks they're the eagle. That's why the symbol is the eagle, the bald eagle. That's their greatest thing, right? And the reason why they liken themselves as an eagle, because the white man is an apex predator in nature. He's a killer, right? He'll kill you, right? He'll kill you. He's an apex predator. So, eagle is an apex predator. Eagles like to be in the nature and mountains and up high and high habitat, and they have very good keen eyes where they can look down and they can see, they prey and all that stuff, right? And so that's how the nature of the white man is. That's why they built these high skyscrapers. Even take it a step further. They was living cavemen because they used to live in the mountains and carve the little caves and stuff, right, where they used to live at. But now they got a little somewhat of civilization about themselves. So now they build skyscrapers, right, which is their artificial mountains that they built. They go to their cities. You see the big old Sears towers and the Empire State Buildings that they like to build. Because it's in their nature to be up high and look down, right? Because that's the nature of an eagle, right? They're hunters. And the eagle swoops down and steals and from their prey and does a lot of the eagles and that's what the eagle does, right? It's a predator. Then it says, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious head, nor thy hurtful claws, nor thy vain body, that all the earth may be refreshed. Because that's when this earth is going to be peaceful. When these people are off the planet, right? Oh, that sounds mean. Why did he say that? Why did he say that? Because God says that. Why? Just get it in Obadiah real quick. Obadiah 1 and 8. And and I like this book, right? And I tell people, the book of Obadiah, if you sit, it's one of the shortest books in the Bible. It's only one chapter, right? 21 verses, one chapter. If you sit down, you can read Obadiah in like 5-10 minutes, right? But Pastor would never sit down and read this book. Although you can sit down and read this whole book in about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but Pastor would never sit down and read this book. Obadiah 1 and 7. And start right there. Start at 6. Matter of fact, let's start at 4. For thou exalted thyself as the eagle. Again, we see these people being likened to the eagle. What did our dear brother Obadiah say? For thou exalted thyself as an eagle, meaning you liken yourself as the eagle, right? Just like we read in our dear brother Ezra, said that, what did it say? And therefore appeared no more thou eagle, right? Then we see over here, our brother Obadiah is saying, our dear brother Obadiah is saying, Thou exalt thyself as the eagle, meaning you liken yourself as the eagle. That's why you look on the back of the quarter, it got an eagle on there. The dollar bill has an eagle on there, right? So it says, thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and thou set thy nest among the stars. Right? Because that's what they did. They set their nest among the stars. And who are the stars? Us, the Israelites. They set their nest among us when they claimed dominance over us and took us the God's people into slavery and ruled over us, right? So that's them setting their nest above the stars of God, right? Just like how you have the stars of Hollywood, right? So, again, we speak in metaphors. So it's not talking about the literal stars in heaven, in the sky, in space. It's talking about us being the stars of God, right? So they set their nest above the stars of God, right? When they took us into slavery, right? Then it says, though thou exalt thyself as an eagle, and thou hast set thy nest among the stars, hence I will bring thee down. So God said, I'm going to bring you down, right? Because I don't mess with y'all. I don't mess with y'all like that. said, hence when I bring thee down, said Yahweh, as a thief come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen until they have gotten enough? Meaning, these people steal so much that they don't get enough from stealing. They will steal everything until they can't steal no more. That's why down there with our brothers and sisters in Haiti, it looked the way it looks, because they rob and steal everything. That's why over there in Africa, certain nations over there look the way they look, because they rob and steal everything, right? Everywhere you may look and see a impoverished nation, you bet to believe that these people are behind it, right? They are behind it. Then it says, if thieves come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen until they have gotten enough? No, they would not get enough. Never going to get enough? They never get enough, right? And it says, if grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? Because in our custom, in our culture, right, when, you have if you're a farmer and you have, some farmland and you farming, you're doing your harvest, you're getting your stuff. So say like you have like apples or in this case grapes. So when you're getting your fruit and you're gathering it, whatever falls to the ground, you're supposed to leave it there. So when a homeless person or a poor person is hungry, they can come through and they can eat that. And you're not supposed to, hey, get out my field, get out my field. You're supposed to leave that for the poor people, right? To eat. So like if a poor person walking past, they're hungry, so then they're allowed to, it's not considered stealing if they're, like that, right? But the Bible is telling you that these people will rob and steal everything, even the stuff that falls to the ground. They would take it and make sure they scoop it all up, right? Look at the mining industry. Look how they put holes all through the earth just to get gold or whatever it is, diamonds, whatever they're looking for down there, right? That's what they would do, right? Because they would steal everything. Think about when those bastards came over here, those conquistadors, those Spanish, filthy, dirty, nasty conquistadors came over here, right? They were stealing so much gold from our Aztec brothers and sisters that their boats were sinking in the ocean. They couldn't even get the gold back to Spain, right? We have treasure hunters today that's looking for Spanish boats to this day, and still finding old ancient Maya and Inca treasure in the ocean because of these boats. They used to power their boats to capacity to the point that it would sink. How greedy do you have to be to fill a boat? They had big old shipping boats that can go from across the Atlantic, so it wasn't little tiny boats now, right? Imagine the Mayflower being filled to the T to its sink, right? That's what they were doing. That's what we're dealing with, right? Then it says, keep reading. And it says, if great gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? No, they would not. How are the things of Esau searched out? How is his hidden things sought up? Meaning, like, why is people not figuring this stuff out? Why is this? These people are able to operate the way they operate and dominate the way they dominate, and nobody seems to say anything, right? All the men of that confederacy have brought even unto the border. Meaning, all the people America think they're cool with, they're gonna find out that some of these countries that they think they're cool with, they ain't that cool with them because they're getting tired. They're getting tired of their stuff too, right? And it says, all that men that brought that had brought the, let me read it right. All thy men of thy confederacy even brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. So all your little NATO partners that you think you cool with, you know, they have deceived thee. That's why we see the ascension, like we read earlier in Daniel, that, you know, the kingdom should be partly strong and partly broken, because it says, the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, meaning the countries that break bread with America and NATO, the Western power, they have laid a wound under thee. There's no understanding in them, meaning you can't sanction these countries. You cannot put sanctions on these countries to make them stop. Russia is not going to stop. Okay, they thought Joe Biden, old ass, thought putting sanctions on Russia was going to make them stop. No, you done brought everybody to a World War III, right? That's what happened. It says there's no understanding in him, meaning you're not going to be able to talk these nations down from doing what they want to do. Especially if you keep bombing the people you're supposed to negotiate with, right? So it says, they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee, meaning they're tricking you. They're just waiting for the right time, right, to jump ship. It says, there's no understanding in them. Shall I not in that day, said Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom? So God said, I'm going to destroy even the wise men out of Edom. Who some of you people like to say, oh, well, not all of them are bad. But God said, shall I not in that day, said the Lord, even destroy the wise man of Edom and the understanding out of the mount of Esau? And that's what we see taking place now. Their wisdom, their understanding is fading. Because why would Donald Trump bomb a nuclear facility and thinking everything gonna be cool? Because their wisdom is fading. Like it says here. Go back to it. Like it says, should I not in that day destroy the wise men out of Edom and the understanding out of the mount of Esau? That's why you're gonna see more dumb mistakes. You're gonna see more dumb decisions that these people are gonna make. That's gonna further push them into this third world war, right? Then it says, shall I not in that day, said Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom and the understanding out of the mount of Esau? And thy mighty men of Teman shall be dismayed, meaning your armies is going to be destroyed. And even to the ends of every one of Mount Esau, what does it say? To the end that every one of Mount Esau, because you know, when it says Mount Esau, it's talking about the nation, because whenever the Bible says mountain, or mountain, usually it's talking about a nation of people. So it's telling you the nation of these Caucasian people, wherever they call themselves these days. It says, and almighty men of Teman shall be dismayed, and to the end of every one of Mount Esau may be cut off by slaughtered. That's what God said He's going to do to these people. So when I said that He's going to take them, get them, remove them off of this green place that we call Earth, that's not my own words. That's not my own desire. That's what it says here. Because here at the Covenant of Zealots, we believe what the book say, right? We don't read stuff and be like, oh, well, dang, I don't like that, so maybe I shouldn't, let me close that up. Let me try to cover that up and never read that. Because, again, this is one of the shortest books in the Bible. If you can sit down and read this one-chapter book within 5 or 10 minutes, and pastor would never sit down in church and read it to us, right? So we got to read it. So it says, and thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end of everyone, of Mount Esau shall be cut off by slaughter. Why is God gonna do this? Because He's just a mean guy, right? For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, because what they have done to us, right? That's why God is gonna destroy every last one of them. For what they have done to us. Right? For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Right? That's the great plan, right? After they, of course, serve their 1,000 years of slavery, they will be cut off forever. Right? That's the great old plan, to get this earth back to how it's supposed to be. Right? Because where were we at? Hold on. Because like we said, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. It covered the faces of the judges thereof, right? So, let's get back to Ezra, right? Where we at in this whole thing? So let's go to Second Ezra 14 and 10, right? So, Second Ezra 14 and 10 says, it says, for the world has lost his youth, and times begin to wax old. Meaning, this place is about to come to an end, right? This world is not going to last forever. And of course, what we mean by the world, we're talking about this society and people, right? And not the physical planet. And it says, for the world has lost its youth, meaning, some time that went by, right? And it says, for the world is divided into 12 parts, right? So let's see how close we are to the end, because some people might say that we're tripping, maybe, people been saying we're just the end for the longest, right? But let's see how close we are to it, right? It says, for the world is divided into 12 parts, right? So you take a clock, you got 12, numbers on the clock, right? Look at it like that. So the world is divided into 12 parts, right? It says, in the 10th part of it are gone already. So 10 parts of it is already gone. Then it says, in a half of a 10th part. And there remaineth that which is after a half of a 10th part, right? So basically, if we take this clock analogy, right, and Ezra lived about 3,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago, or maybe about 3,000 years ago, right? So, and the angel is telling them at his time that for the world is divided into 12 parts, and 10 parts of it are already gone. So by the time that Ezra hit the scene 3,000 years ago, 10 parts of what God already planned to happen already happened. What I mean by already planned to happen, meaning that's history, right? All the way up to Ezra. So now it says, in 10 parts of that is already gone, and half of the 10th part, and there remaineth that which is after the half a 10th, right? So it's talking about, so basically how this will look on the clock if the let's just say Jesus, let's just say Yahweh Shah comes back at 12 a.m., right? So the clock says 10:30 right now, right? It was 10:30 when Ezra was writing this, right? And Ezra lived 3,000 years ago, okay? So if Ezra wrote this 3,000 years ago, and the angel was telling them that Christ is coming back at 12 a.m., then the time that he told Christ, the time that he told the angel, the time that he told Ezra that Christ is coming back at 12 a.m., the time was already 10:30, right? So now, that's 3,000 years ago. We're in 2025, so how much closer do we think we are to that midnight clock, right? And just coincidence, the so-called white man, they invented something called the doomsday clock. So spiritually, they know that their end is coming to the end. Because God even put it in them spiritually to even create a clock called the doomsday clock to count down their own demise of their own kingdom. Right? So, that's how it goes. And we already read Ezra 6 and 9, so I ain't going to get that. So it says, now therefore, set thy house in order. That's why we came here. So knowing that Ezra lived 3,000 years ago, and using the analogy of a clock, right, and saying that Jesus Christ is coming back at 12 a.m. And we heard that news at 10:30, right? So, but that news we heard was 3,000 years ago, right? So how closer are we to that midnight? Because even when Christ walked the scene, Christ was calling that the last days. He's saying that Christ said the last days begin in the time of John the Baptist. And John the Baptist lived 2,000 years ago. Right? So, the Bible says when you see these prophecies start to pass, we know what time we're in, right? We're seeing the times, we're watching, right? So it says, now therefore set thy house in order and reprove thy people, comfort such of them that be troubled, and now renounce corruption. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to comfort our people, let them know that the Most High God is coming back, is judging this whole world for what they have done to us. And Jesus only died for us. And he's coming back to save us out of this place that, where we're scattered at, right? So we're comforting the people. We let them know, don't be scared about this World War III, because we know the playbook. God already told us what was going to happen. All we got to do is keep the faith and the commandments, right? And it says, let go from thee the mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of men, put off now the weak nature, right? So we gotta stop, we gotta, stop being that wicked old person that we once was, and realize, like, look, God is for real. Jesus is coming back. He's black and he's back, right? We gotta understand that and get our stuff together. That's what it's telling us right here. Because when we see these things, we looking at these signs, we looking at this stuff, and if everything's happening the way that it said it's going to happen, then we have to say to ourselves, well, dang, I think I got to get myself together, right? I got to get my life together, right? And it says, let go from the mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of men, put off the weak nature, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee. So set aside these heavy thoughts. A lot of times, I tell people all the time, we get laden with our own stress and stuff that we go through in our day-to-day life, that we get beat down, and that we oftentimes don't allow ourselves time for God, right? Or to allow ourselves to be watchers of prophecies, to see what's going on in the world, right? To understand, and see where we at in this thing. Because sometimes we have so much hell going on in our lives that we can't focus on anything else but how can I get out of this trouble that I'm in, right? How can I pay this bill? How can I put my child, through daycare? How can I do this? How can I do that, right? We have these different thoughts, right? But what the angel that's talking to the prophet Ezra is telling us, he's saying, let go from these mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of men. Meaning, look, life can be stressful. Yes, it can. But we can't beat ourselves up on the stress that we go through. Because it's something. It's about to go down, like literally and figuratively, right? And so we have to prepare ourselves. We can't just be out of focus on what's really happening, what's taking place. And it says, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee. All these stressful thoughts that, keep us away from, learning and getting more in tune to what's going on with, what God wants us to know, right? And it says, and hasty to flee from these times, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to haste, equip ourselves with the knowledge so we can, escape these perils that's happening, right? Because a lot of us, sadly, is not going to escape these things. Because I don't know if y'all familiar, a nuclear bomb is, that does a lot of damage, right? Let's get Ezra's 15 real quick, right? Cause let's get 15. And so it says, behold, and speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy which I put in thy mouth, said the Lord, and cause them to write it in papers, for they are fulfilled, for they are faithful and true, right? So, like I said, so we got to know that these prophecies are faithful and true because God said it, right? And we can, now that we're living in 2025, certain things that the prophets wrote about, we can look back through history and say, yeah, that happened. And then we can bet our whole everything that what else these wise brothers said is going to also happen, right? So it says, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy which I will fulfill in thy mouth, which said Yahweh, and cause them to be written in papers, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imagination against thee. Let not the incredulity. Read it right. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee. Right. Speak against them. Right. So, and that's what we're doing. We're speaking against these wicked nations. Right. These wicked people. And it says, for all the unfaithful should die by their unfaithfulness. Right? Because we have a lot of our people that just don't believe, right? They think this Bible stuff is a joke. Like I was talking the other day, how we discovered that, with the whole 9/11 stuff, these people, I mean, not the COVID stuff, that happened a few years ago. A lot of these people really don't believe in God. Church is just a fun place for them to be. Like, and the Bible is just a souvenir to have in the house, right? That's what we found out, right? And it says, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness, right? Let's get Revelation 18 and 2, right? Revelation 18 and 2. And it says, and he cried with a mighty strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, it is fallen, and it become the habitation of devils, and in the hold of every foul spirit, and the the cage of every unclean and, and hateful bird, right? And that's, like I said, and that's what's going to happen, because it says, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. So everybody that want to be a part of the society, want to, pray for America and hope that they prevail. Just send a prayer up for Israel and hope everything's all right. It says that for all the unfaithful should die in their unfaithfulness. Then it says over here, he cried with a mighty and strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. America is Babylon the Great. So if you want to fall with America, then go ahead. Go ahead and take part in their philosophies and their holidays and do the things that Americans do, right? Because it says, Babylon is fallen, it is fallen, it has become the habitation of devils, and be in hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean, hateful bird. Right? Because that's what's in this place. Nothing but wickedness, confusion, and destruction. Because nothing but hell in this place, right? So, moving on. Let's get Psalms 73 real quick. Psalm 73. Psalm 73 and 9 says, they set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walked through the earth, right? And that's what they do. They set their mouth against the heavens. How do they do that? With their vain philosophies, their different doctrines, they're, making it seem, putting themselves up as God, right? And it says, and their tongue walked through the earth. And how does the white man's tongue walk through the earth? How does America's tongue walk through the earth, right? With their army, with their NATO, with their policies, their global policies that they enforce on these nations and make them follow, right? And, they push, their culture and their philosophies on all these nations, and then if they don't do it, they blow them up, or they sanction them, right? And so that's how they tongue walk through the earth, because what they say goes, and if it don't go, they gonna press the button on you, right? And it's gonna be something, right? But these other nations is waking up, like we read in Joel, that these other nations are becoming strong, and they saying, and they getting they army ready, right? So and it says, oh boy. And it says, back in Esdras, behold, said the Lord, I will bring plague upon the world, and the sword, and famine, death, and destruction, right? That's what's happening. Y'all thought COVID-19 was something. Y'all thought the monkeypox and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pipeline, right? And it says, upon the world, and the sword, and famine, death, and destruction, right? This, for the wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled, right? And that's what happened, because when these people run the earth gets polluted with wickedness. And why? And this is why we call them the devil, the wicked, the evil, because the Bible calls them the wicked, the evil, the devil, right? And it's not my vain personal opinion. We have scriptures to prove it. Because, like we just read here, keep this in mind where we at. Where we at? It says, for the wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled, right? Then let's get this, right? It says, Right, okay, now, yeah, let me get this right. So, yeah, because they multiply, right? Let's get this really quick and find it. It's in first, hey, Slovakia. So, first Maccabees, right? So, the first Maccabees, because, we prove what we say, because, let's go right here. First Maccabees, right? So now, quick history lesson. Make sure we on the same plan, right? Same page. Alexander the Great, a Greek guy, right? He's a Greek, and the Greeks are, what we know is white people, right? Alexander was a white man, right? And the Greeks. So at one point in time, they start calling themselves the Greeks, right? So it says, and it happened after Alexander, the son of Philip. So the Bible, like again, we know the Bible deals with history, right? So I ain't gonna, but anyway, I'm gonna go on another rant. But it says, and it happened after Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chitin, which is a city in Greece, a place in Greece, and had smitten Darius, the king of Persia, and the Medes, and that he reigned in his stead after the first over Greece. So, the story. Alexander united the Greek province and brought it in and formed the nation of Greece, and he became the first king of Greece. That's history. We know that. The Bible wrote about it, right? Then he also took out the Persians and the Medes, because we were in slavery to the Babylonians, right? Then the Persians defeated the Babylonians. Then we went into captivity to the Persians. Then later on, Alexander ended up defeating the Persians, right? So this is history that we're reading. So, so it's not like the Bible is something that we, don't have to fully believe in. It's history, right? That we can look to, right? So, but back to the point, right? So it says, and he made many wars and won many strongholds and slew many kings of the earth, right? That's what Alexander did. For 12 years, he went around killing everything that he can kill, right? And it says, and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, so much as the earth was quiet before him, meaning the Greeks were such a powerful army that no other nation went to try to fight with them and went and raise war with them, right? So it says, so much as the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was uplifted, because he became very prideful. He's like, I'm destroying all these nations with ease, right? And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries. He had 4 generals. He split them up and had them rule over their respective areas, right? And it says, rule over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries under him. So he made these other nations pay taxes to him, right? Then it says, after these things he felt sick and perceived that he should die. So Alexander, he died of a sickness, right? Then it says, wherefore he called his servants and were honorable, and had brought up with him from youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So the 4 generals end up taking control over the kingdom that Alexander had created, right? So Alexander reigned 12 years and died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So again, we're still talking about these people, right? So it says, they all put crowns on themselves, so that their sons after them many years, and evil. So what happened when these white folks is in power, and when they have control, right? Like we read in Job 9:24, that the earth is given unto the wicked. So it says, and evil were multiplied on the earth. So just like we were reading over here, back over here in where we at in 15, where it says, let's see, boom, 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 destruction, drawing that, I guess not, boom, where it at? So yeah, but it says like it says over here that the evil multiplied, right? And we see that yes, evil multiplied when they run things. Just like the Bible says, the earth mourns when the wicked are in bear rule, but the earth rejoice when the righteous are in authority, right? So it says where we at? So it says, for wickedness has exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. So we see when these people are in power, wickedness pollutes the earth. That's why it's hell on earth. Everywhere you go, death, famine, war, destruction, everything. Because when they're in power, their influence is wickedness. And that pollutes the whole earth, right? And it says, for wickedness have exceeded and polluted the earth, and in their hurtful works, and their hurtful works are fulfilled, right? Because, like it says over here in it says over here it says after his death they put crowns upon themselves, so that their sons after them, meaning they remain in power even after their death, because their sons took over. Even their sons after them many years, and evil were multiplied on the earth. So that's what happened when these people are in control of everything. Evil multiplies. That's why the earth is in the state that it's in now, right? And it says, where we at? Therefore said Yahweh, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness. So God got a plan for these people. So I'm not going to hold my tongue no more for touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them those things which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and the righteous blood cry unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. Because God is not, he doesn't forget, right? He doesn't forget. Just like when Cain killed Abel, he was like, your brother's blood cry out to me. Because when the innocent is killed unjustly, the innocent is like that little kid that always pulling on their parents' pants leg or a little sleeve always, or like that little meme of Stewie from a Family Guy. He's like, mommy, 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 mom, 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 mommy, mommy, mommy. Right? That's what we do. Like that's what the innocent that is viciously murdered on this earth do constantly to the ears of God, for him to get vengeance to the people that killed them unjustly. Right? So it says, I will hold my tongue no more as the touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit, neither will I suffer them in those things which they obey, which they exceedingly wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and the righteous blood cry unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. Therefore said Yahweh, I will surely avenge them, and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter, and I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. So God got to come and help us, because our people are just, easily brainwashed and follow any philosophy and every philosophy. So that's why we need the Most High God to come and save us, right? And it says, boom, boom, boom. So I would bring them with a mighty hand and stretch out my arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and I would destroy the land thereof. And we know America is spiritual Egypt, and we read about that in Revelation, right? Then it says, and Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation shall be smitten, and the plagues and the punishment that God shall bring upon it, that they shall till that till the ground shall mourn, for the sea shall fall, shall fail. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Okay, no, okay, we can jump down to 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell in it, for the sword and their destruction draw nigh." So that's what's happening, because it's about to go down when this full-fledged war fully kicks off. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draws nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and a sword in the hand, and with swords in the hand." This is talking about nation against nation, civil war, civil unrest, right? For they shall says for there shall be sedition among men, invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor their priests nor their princes. In the course of their actions shall stand in their hands. Meaning, this is going to be civil unrest. You thought January 6th or something? This time is going to succeed, and they're going to overthrow their government. They're going to take the government out, because it says, "For it shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes." So we're not going to listen to the law in that day. It's not going to be no police, no army, no National Guard to stop the people from running into that White House and doing what they want to do, right? And it says, "The course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man should desire to go into a city and should not be able." Because, it's going to be martial law. It's going to be all this stuff going on, right? Then it says, "For because their pride of the city shall be troubled, and the house shall be destroyed, and the man shall be afraid. But the man have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with the sword and spoil their goods because of a lack of bread." So during this time when all hell breaks loose, right? It's going to be famine. It's going to be sickness. It's going to be disease, right? People are going to be breaking into each other's houses, robbing, stealing, killing, trying to, survive. That's why I said it's going to be some stuff that you never even seen before. You might have to do some stuff that you never even thought you might have to do before. That's why we need the Most High protection, right? And it says, "A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. Behold, said God, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising of the sun, and from the south, and from the east, and from Lebanus, to turn themselves one against another." So this is talking about World War III is going to bring all these nations to fight against each other, right? It says one against another, and to repay them, and to repay the things that they have done unto them. So that's why God is doing it, to repay them for everything they had done, right? Let's get Matthew 21 real quick. Matthew 21:7 says, And I brought the ass and the coat, and put them together clothes, and they said, hold on, that's the one I want right now. Hold it. That's the one I want. hold up. Hey, hold on. All right, we're gonna hold that one real quick, right? Um, maybe I don't want Matthew. All right, okay. Let's go. Let's keep reading, right? And it says, like as they do yet this day unto my chosen, I will do also in recompense in their bosom. Thus said the Lord God, right? So God says He's gonna pay them back to their face, right? And make sure that you know they understand that He is who He said He was, right? The Most High, right? And they're gonna, and as we bringing this out, we telling the people what's going on, right? We letting people know that God is moving, because people just think stuff is just happening and God don't have control. He knows exactly what's happening, and it's all His plan for it to happen. Then it says, thus saith the Lord God, my right hand should not spare the sinner. My right hand should not spare the sinner, and my sword shall not cease over them that shed innocent blood upon the earth. And these people have shed innocent blood upon the earth constantly, daily, and ever since their whole conception, right, of this place, right? The fire is going forth from His wrath and have consumed the foundation of the earth, and the sinner, like the straw that is kindled. Woe to them that sin and keep not my commandments, said the Lord. So then you have our people that, will say, yeah, I'm a sinner. A lot of our people say they will for sinners, right? A lot of our people think that you don't have to keep the commandments. But He says here, woe to them that sin and keep not my commandments, said the Lord. I will not spare them. Go your way, ye children, from the power, defile not my temple. So God said, don't do what these other nations do. Do what I told you to do, right? Defile not my temple, for the Lord knoweth all them that sin against Him, and therefore deliver He them into death and destruction, right? That's what God says, right? So yeah, but we're gonna end it right there, right? Hopefully that was edifying. You know, giving us a little more insight into this World War III Armageddon thing and how it's going to play out and what's it going to look like and God's plan, right? And hopefully it takes some of the fear out of it, right? So I'm going to say shalom, peace. Hopefully that was edifying. Until next time, I'm out.